Welcome everybody to the next presentation. So coming up next, we have Dr. Vilmos Vass from Budapest Metropolitan University with a talk on how the supporting system to implement a brand building program in higher education. Welcome on stage, Dr. Vass, and please go ahead with your presentations.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? I hope. Okay, and good afternoon.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon because I am in Budapest, and great pleasure to be here. And thank you for your honorable invitation. Give my speech to here, and please open my presentation. Could you just move on the next slide, please? Okay, so my name is Vilmos Vass. I am an associate professor and college professor at Budapest Metropolitan University, and I work for the Institute of Political Science and International Studies. And in Budapest, this is the biggest private higher education institution, a very international profile. We have students from 100 different countries. And I am a board member of who is responsible for brand building program. So in order to understand the contextual background of our program, why we did choose brand building program 4 years ago, I'd like to highlight three phenomena of nowadays international arena of higher education, namely the significant changes, globalization and internationalization, parallel to growing needs on transdisciplinarity and personalized tutoring in recent decades. The second challenge of higher education institutions all over the world, we call this one the VUCA word, that volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous word. And the third one is that the world's problem of today and tomorrow requires a new approach, a new way of learning and teaching. Next slide, please. The potential answer on these above-mentioned challenges called portfolio-based competency development higher education, which is the really complex definition and context nowadays. And as you see these examples from different publications, higher education portfolio, e-portfolios in higher education, the educational potential e-portfolios, as you see the last title, supporting personal development and reflective learning, the learning portfolio in higher education, that we decided 4 years ago that a portfolio is a significant and useful tool to our students in order to following the progression of learning. And because traditionally Hungarian higher education system is content-based, we try to combine with portfolio-based assessment, formative assessment, with competency development. So we created competency standards from communication, critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and so on. So we try to create this strategy around this project. Next slide, please. Under the umbrella of lots of board discussion, we use a very famous change model from Michael Fallon, Ontario, Toronto University, that the 3 stages of expressis verbis implementation, namely initiation, implementation, and the last stage is institutionalization. So we are now at my university at this program between the pilot initiation, moving forward to implementation. So on my case study, I'd like to give you some details. How can we collect some evidences on the impact of pilot implementation initiation, and with some qualitative research, and how can we collect some challenges or problems, and moving forward to the implementation phase. The next 2 years, we are moving to the last stage. That's the optimistic view, that institutionalization. Next slide, please. As you know, dear colleagues, there are some types of portfolio. I'd like to just briefly put here on our table 3 different types of portfolio. The first type of portfolio is a simple collection of students' work. The second type is learning portfolio, and the third one is career portfolio. Why did we choose career portfolio and not simple turning to learning portfolio? Because a career portfolio, which is a collection of materials that give evidences on your learning, that's the one side of the coin. And the second one is work experience, your competencies to potential employers. So we try to close the skill gap between the education and working sector. The second reason why did we choose career portfolio, in this case, labor market needs have huge impact to the process of learning and teaching in higher education. That's why we use this one, competency-based education. And finally, as you see the definition and citation from Mr. Rijdt, that career portfolio is a new way to think about the professional future in order to navigate our ever-changing world of work with purpose, clarity, and flexibility. I like to emphasize from this quote that a new way of think, which is not so easy and comfortable to the students and to the teachers as well. Next slide, please. After the contextual background, I'd like to turn directly to the practice. So as I mentioned to you, MyBrand is a career-focused educational initiative of the Budapest Metropolitan University, which helps students to succeed in the world of work through practice-oriented education and the development of competencies required in the labor market, which was implemented 4 years ago. This is the pilot stage. We use the latest report of jobs report published World Economic Forum. What about the top 10 skills for the potential workers and the workers? And we already discussed a lot about the different concepts, especially skill gap, key competencies or life skills, and upskilling. How can we help and promote to our students in order to develop these skills at higher education? And we use not just simple MyBrand program, but we changed this terminology last year's MyBrand approach or MyBrand mindset, because approach and mindset, it's much more than methodological innovation. Mindset and approach indicates that this is the much more than simple unsystematic way of innovation at higher education. So as you see, the MyBrand approach, which focuses on the professional and personal self-improvement, conscious competence development, and brand building of the students. First, we try to focus on students, but after a lot of discussion with the teachers, a lot of workshops and training to the teachers, it was clearly evident that this process, self-improvement, conscious competence development, and brand building, parallel to students and teachers also. So the central idea of MyBrand is to help students understand and shape why, what, and how they learn, and to help them understand how they can use what they learn. So that was the critical starting point of the approach and mindset, because basically the key question traditionally at Hungarian higher education, what they learn, after that how they learn, and just the last point is why. We try to change this triangle, and starting with why, and after that how and what. So that's the very consistent way in order to increase consciousness behind the MyBrand program. Next slide, please. Just turning back to the change model by Michael Fallon. So the initiation, we call this one the pilot project. There are 5 phases or stages that, especially to the students. So the student's way and the teacher's way. Student's way started with Start MyBrand, with some trainings and workshops before the formal higher education, which are based on development, self-management, self-knowledge, self-evaluation, self-reflection, and so on. Our students, the first 2 weeks, got several workshops on collaboration, self-evaluation, self-management, conflicts resolution, resilience, and so on and so on and so on. So after this, starting the competency-based trainings and workshops, the MyBrand-based education starting, and the first phase of collection of career portfolio items, that's the very starting point in order to understand so why career portfolio is really important to our students. The third phase to the students' way, that after the semester and the middle part of the semester, portfolio workshop is coming at the second phase of the collection. Portfolio workshop is directly based on building mind map, creating portfolio, evaluating the collections, and practicing self-reflective thinking. And the fourth phase, which is really important, or the best way in order to find the balance between education sector and work sector, our students not just working on trainings, workshops at university, but immediately they work in practice on the basis of their professions. And finally, the MyBrand final exam, where the students need to present their career portfolios. Our exam committee, it's very transdisciplinary. Especially we invited some heads, management members, board members from the work sectors, and we are evaluating the portfolios after short presentations to the students. Parallel these 5 stages or phases, the teacher's way as important as the student's way. Teacher's way, that we are organizing a lot of trainings, workshops, discussions around the MyBrand pilot implementation. Next slide, please. We try to evaluate the pilot phase of implementation on MyBrand program as the initiating with some children disease, of course. Not just discussion and not just classroom observation and not just self-evaluation questionnaire to the teachers and the students. I like to pick up just one qualitative research from the implementation evaluation. We did 14 in-depth interviews with different actors of MyBrand, from a management and teacher side as well, highlighting some questions here. What is MyBrand? What does the MyBrand implementation mean? Design and teaching practices, and collecting some problems. The first point is the conceptual clarification is just an average. There are lots of interpretations at the university regarding the definition of MyBrand and implementation phase. But because of my time, I'd like to focus on just the problems highlighted by the teachers that management doesn't understand, lack of common understanding on campus among the teachers. There should be innovation rather than imitation, and that should be the mandatory continuing education system for lecturers or credits. How can we answer on these interviews? Next slide, please. Turning to my conclusion. My first conclusion is that following the analysis of the interviews, 4 training sessions on a common understanding of the MyBrand program, we organized this semester with around 45 teachers from the different departments, were held at the university using the word cafe and cooperative learning methods to help trainers and teachers to speak a common language, mutual understanding, and learn about each other's good practices in design, development, and evaluation. The second one is, at the organizational level, the experiences of the pilot implementation and on the basis of the qualitative research findings were discussed, and as a result, the development of a supporting system for the implementation starting. Supporting system, according to my opinion, that's the key factor of moving forward to the implementation and institutionalization. Some parts of the supporting system, just an example, MyBrand portfolio workshops and trainings, okay? We are organizing Teachers Day, Teachers Club, mentoring program, basic competence matrix, MyBrand teaching handbook, and Matthew Learn curricula, and online knowledge hub in order to promote e-learning and e-portfolios. Next slide, please. And my second conclusion is to the progressive and proactive point, the future. The critical point is mutual understanding of the concept and the importance of on MyBrand program, and not just program itself, but as I told you that mindset and not just simply the methodological innovation in order to discuss about it with the same language. And the next critical point is changing the teacher's mindset, turning to revisionalized knowledge and learning, focusing on not just explicit knowledge, but tacit knowledge and procedural knowledge, and not just declarative knowledge, and especially focusing on innovative learning and teaching strategies, for instance, project-based learning, cooperative learning, and so on. So we have already some findings and data, the impact and the result of the pilot phase implementation on MyBrand program. And I really appreciate your attendance. And the next slide is, the last slide is, thank you for your attention, dear colleagues. And I am ready for answer your question.
Did anybody here have any question that you want to share with Dr. Vass?
What are the functional constraints?
Hi, Dr. Vass. Thank you so much for such an insightful sharing. We do not really have any questions.
For your help.
We do not really have any question for now. So if anybody wants to keep talking with Dr. Vass, we do have the networking hub for everybody to continue the conversations after the presentation. In the meantime, we're going to transition to the next presentation at 11:30. So feel free to hang around in the chat, move to the networking hub, or if there are anything, feel free to drop in your contact at the bus so that people can just reach out to you for any question. Hi, Dr. Vass. Actually, there's a question just came in. I don't know if you saw it. The question is like, what are some of the functional constraints you foresee for this approach?
Oh, that's a really good question. That's Harem. Okay. Are you Harem?
Yes.
Where Harem is?
I'm here.
Yeah?
Yes,
Could you clarify your question, please? More details behind this one?
So I meant, what are some of the functional challenges if we try to incorporate this in higher education? What are some of the functional challenges that you can foresee as someone who's working in a more hierarchical position?
It's a really good question anyway. We are now in the pilot phase now at this program. And we try to find some very practice-oriented firms and economic partners. We have lots of traditional connections with them. The lucky situation at my university, so we have not just academic teachers, but we have lots of professors and lots of actors directly from the business area. So last 15 years, we focused on applied knowledge at this university, and our students got a lot of direct lessons, workshops from directly to the market. So that was a really good phase, the good ground phase in order to build my MyBrand program systematically at my university. So that was the very significant point for the implementation. But the problem, as I show you the conclusion, changing the mindset from the academic sector. How can we find the balance between, in order to reduce skill gap between academic and business area? So that's why I believe that lots of discussions, that's a really key factor behind this one, in order to moving forward from the introduction phase, the pilot phase, to next 5 years to the institutionalization, as Michael Fallen suggested.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for the information and the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It's very
course.
kind. I really appreciate your question.
So thank you so much for sharing. And that would conclude the presentation.